Great. So I'm just going to start off today by outlining the structure of today's webinar. So firstly, I will be introducing to you all the Great Nurdle Hunt project and how to conduct your own hunt. And then we will have a short Q&A session on that. I will then be handing over to Maddie, who's going to talk through FIDRA's solution to nurdle pollution for a bit. Then we'll be heading over to Chase Tunnel in the States from Nurdle Patrol, who will be going through some of their work and the solutions work. We're then going to hear from some representatives from organisations who are working on other types of solution work, Plastic Soup Foundation, As You Sow and Client Earth. We will then have a bit of a longer Q&A and open up the discussion to other individuals out there who wish to tell us more about possible other solutions to nurdle pollutions that we haven't covered. And then we'll have a roundup and close. So the Great Nurdle Hunt. Where did the Great Nurdle Hunt project start? So we are from an environmental charity called FIDRA, and FIDRA work to reduce plastic waste and chemical pollution in our seas, the beaches and the wider environment. So we are based in Scotland, and we are named after a small island in East Lothian where we were founded. So the charity started out because our founder lived by the sea here and was concerned about plastic litter on local beaches, and began to focus on then the little known problem of nurdles, which were washing up on the shores locally in this area. So those pictures on the screen there are taken from the Firth of Forth, which is an estuary here in Scotland, and it just shows the nurdle pollution that was accumulating there. So then our founder formally established FIDRA, the charity, and launched the Great Nurdle Hunt project. So there's hopefully our familiar logo in the middle of the screen there that some of you will recognise. So it's actually one of the first projects that our organisation worked on. So the project set out to learn more about nurdles, document nurdle pollution through citizen science, and engage with industry and others to work out how to come to a solution. So I'm first going to take you through what we have learned about nurdles and then touch back on what the Great Nurdle Hunt project has achieved so far. So I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar and know a lot about nurdles, but if you're not, nurdles are small round plastic pellets, and they are the building blocks to all plastic materials. So these nurdles are melted down to make any sort of plastic product, from plastic bottles to wheelie bins, and so they are also known as pre-production plastic pellets. And they are really small, although the picture there doesn't make them look that small, but they are 2 to 3 millimeters in diameter usually. And so they are already a microplastic when escaping into the environment, or also known as a primary microplastic. And for perspective, it takes around 500 to 1,000 of these nurdles to make one plastic bottle. So there are trillions of nurdles produced worldwide every year. I think plastic production worldwide is just above 350 million tons of plastic each year. So that starts out as trillions and trillions of pellets. So what is the problem with these nurdles? Well, nurdles are leaking out throughout the whole plastics supply chain. So this means that plastic is escaping into the environment before it has even been made into anything useful, which is a huge waste of resources and energy. And the vast scale and complex nature of the plastic industry means that these nurdles are handled multiple times, and at each stage, nurdles can be lost to the environment. So the infographic on the right-hand on the right of the screen there basically demonstrates a simplified version of the plastic supply chain, and you can see where these nurdles are leaking out. And nurdles are very good at escaping because they are so small and lightweight. You can see on the left here, they are easily blown and they float, which means spills and mishandling by industry often means that nurdles end up in drains and in the environment. And once in the environment, they spread far and wide, usually ending up at sea. And because they are a microplastic, they are easily ingested by a range of animals. So the infographic there is demonstrating the range of species that have been found to ingest nurdles. And because they float, they are particularly threatening to animals who feed on the surface of waters. For example, birds, a lot of species of birds have been linked to nurdle ingestion. The photo on the top left screen there is a photo of a bird pellet, which is basically the regurgitated material that birds can't digest. This is from a herring gull, and it was found on the island of Inchkeith, which is an important seabird nesting site here in the Firth of Forth. So this gull was lucky enough to regurgitate some nurdles in this pellet that you can faintly see in the picture there, and some other nasty bits of plastic that the seabird had swallowed. And another problem with nurdles is that they look remarkably like fish eggs. So here on the bottom left, you can see the similarities between fish eggs and the clear round nurdles. And some research has shown that nurdles even begin to smell like food after a while to some animals because of the type of algae that starts to grow on their surfaces. And finally, nurdles can also accumulate toxins on their surface when at sea. And nurdles have been found to be particularly good at this. They can attract and concentrate chemical contaminants found in the sea to their surface in very high concentrations. So for example, one study has shown persistent organic pollutants, which are long-lasting harmful chemicals, have been found on nurdles at over 1 million times background levels. So we know that nurdles are bad, but how big is the problem? Well, the higher end of these estimates have predicted that around 230,000 tons of pellets are lost to the environment from accidental spills worldwide every year. So that's around 10 trillion pellets, or the equivalent of around 15 billion plastic bottles. So it is a massive amount of microplastic pollution, and is actually predicted to be the second largest source of primary microplastic pollution worldwide, which is what that infographic is demonstrating there, just the red arrow pointing to where nurdles fit in. And it's just behind tire dust being the #1 source of primary microplastic pollution. So the Great Nurdle Hunt. What is the Great Nurdle Hunt project aiming to do to tackle this source of pollution? So the project is using citizen science to build evidence of this nurdle pollution worldwide. So in its simplest form, we are asking people to head to the beach, search for nurdles and submit their results online. 3 very easy steps. And then the aim is to then take this evidence to government and industry to show that this is a problem, to show that it's a global problem, to show that people care as well, and to force change. So it raises international awareness of the nurdle pollution problem. And since it has begun, we've become an international hub for global nurdle pollution data. And this has gained us a platform to seek aligned international solutions to global pellet loss, which, is partly what today's webinar is about, to have a chance to discuss the different solutions worldwide, which Maddie will begin to introduce in a little while. So this is what our global map of nurdle data looked like when we first began. So you can see the tiny dot there is representing nurdle pollution in Scotland, where we are. And then over the years, as the project has begun to grow, so is our data set, which brings us to today. So over the years, we have grown and expanded and had many different global events as well. So today, nearly 6,000 hunts have been delivered to date, covering 7 continents, and over 50 countries have been surveyed worldwide. So yeah, it's a really big achievement. And nurdles have been found on the coastline of every European country monitored in the data set. And we should mention that this data set does include 3 external data sets from various organisations, including Nurdle Patrol. So thank you very much for that. And basically, yeah, another big thanks to just everyone who has took part so far, who's helped us raise awareness, shared data, helped us expand the project into different regions and countries, and who's working together on solutions worldwide. And thanks to those as well who are new to nurdles and want to work on this issue. We basically couldn't have done any of this without you. So that is a nice selection of nurdle hunters from around the world from our past global events. So this year we want our nurdle hunt to be even bigger and better. So I'm now going to take you through how to take part or organise a nurdle hunt for October this year. So if you're new to nurdle hunting or organising your own event, this should hopefully be very useful for you. So I'm going to just touch on how to take part, take you through some safety considerations, some top tips for finding nurdles, just some advice on recording and submitting your data, and how to promote your hunt. So please do remember that taking part is simple. Again, if nurdle hunting is new to you, then these are probably just the 5 key things to remember from today. But firstly, I just want to highlight that it's the global event is happening throughout the whole month of October this year. And basically, all you have to do is select a date in October, tell us how many nurdles you find, where you found them, how long you were hunting for, and how many people took part. And please do also remember it is still very valuable for us to know if you don't find any nurdles when you conduct your nurdle hunt. So please do still tell us this, still submit your data, even if you don't find any. But I wouldn't be doing this presentation if there wasn't a few more tips I could give you on how to do a hunt. So a few safety pointers. When choosing a location, we would encourage you to check our map to see where has or hasn't been surveyed yet. But if there is a place that you're wanting to maybe survey, but it hasn't been surveyed yet on the map, there might be a good reason as to why that is. For example, it might not be a safe place to access. So if you're planning a hunt and it's a place you haven't been to before, please make sure you scout out the area to make sure you can access it safely at the time that you wish to conduct your hunt. And when choosing a time, please make sure you've checked the tide times. We don't want anyone to be stranded or caught out anywhere. And besides, after high tide is the best time to search for nurdles and probably the safest time to search for nurdles. So please do take that into account. A few common sense things: check the weather in advance of your nurdle hunt, and just make sure that it's safe to go out and hunt. This is a global event, so we will be having all very different weather come October, I'm sure, when taking part. If you're doing a group event, choose a sensible meeting place, somewhere that's easy easily accessible, maybe close to public transport links, has ramps, for example, to get down to the beach. Just choose somewhere that's not too difficult to get to. Appropriate clothing. This is very relevant for Scotland. We want you all to have fun whilst doing your hunts, but don't ever underestimate the sea, the tides, the currents, and especially in stormy conditions. For example, in Scotland, it is probably best to be prepared for all types of weather. But regardless where you are in the world, it's probably a sensible suggestion to just wear some sturdy footwear to avoid sort of plastic or sharp rocks hurting your feet whilst rummaging for nurdles. And an important addition to this year's safety considerations is COVID-19. Nurdle hunting can be a COVID-friendly activity. It's outside, people can socially distance. You don't even have to touch anything. If you do, we always advise that you would wear gloves and wash your hands thoroughly anyway. But please do only take part in a nurdle hunt in your area if it is safe to do so. And please always follow your local government or council guidelines on COVID-19 rules. Yes, and remember that we do only ask you to count the nurdles, so you do not have to pick them up or remove them if you don't want to. The most important part of the hunt is just telling us how many nurdles you count, but we understand that many of you will want to remove the nurdles from the environment, especially if you're doing your nurdle hunt alongside a beach clean, for example. But we just must remind you that nurdles can contain toxic pollutants from the ocean on their surface. So if you're collecting or removing nurdles, please just make sure that you have appropriate equipment with you. We would recommend just using gloves and or tweezers to remove the nurdles. And yeah, just please make sure you do wash your hands if you do handle nurdles or any sort of marine litter, to be honest. So if you are organising your own event, you may want to consider getting a few spare pairs of gloves for your nurdle hunters. As well, if you're organising a bigger event, please complete a risk assessment. Please remember you are responsible for the event and your participants. You may even want to consider if you need to take out public liability insurance. Maybe check with your organisation to see if you have this already. And just remember that taking part is voluntary and entirely at an individual's own risk. We can't take responsibility for your safety. Being a global event, we won't know where everyone's hunting, but we want you to be as safe as possible. So just take that into account. Where to search for nurdles. So if you're new to nurdle hunting and haven't heard of nurdles before, you might be thinking, I've never spotted nurdles before on my beach. But I mean, if you look at our nurdle map, there is obviously a lot of places where nurdles have been found. You just need to know where to look because they can be quite hard to spot sometimes. So a good place to start is looking amongst other marine litter or plastic. So nurdles can accumulate on small pieces of plastic on the beach. Check in vegetation as well that's on the beach. So because nurdles are light, they often get blown to the back of beaches where vegetation tends to grow, and they often get caught in the grass or the rocks at the top of the beach. So check there. Check in amongst the tide line. So the tide line is where the sea basically washes up all sorts of marine debris, and nurdles tend to be washed up with them and found on the high tide mark. Sandy beaches are easier to hunt and spot for nurdles, but that's not to say that you can't look for nurdles on a stony or pebbly beach. or any sort of other body of water for that matter, like a river or a lake. You can search for nurdles here. They're just easier to spot on a sandy beach. Maybe also look on sheltered tracks or paths at the edge of the beach. Nurdles may have been blown or swept there, perhaps in very high tide or stormy conditions. And beach litter can often accumulate near the headlands of bays or towards a corner of a bay, so also check for nurdles in there. And just a few tips. I mean, if you've done a nurdle hunt before, you'll probably have your own method of looking and searching. We've come across some very creative methods over the years, but a sieve tends to work quite well, especially on a sandy beach, to just kind of, sieve through the sand and look for nurdles. And having buckets and jars can help you just keep track of how many you find. And again, if you are planning to handle the nurdles, just please make sure you wear gloves. So knowing your nurdles. So quite often the colours of nurdles blends in with the sand, or can be covered up by seaweed, shells, grass. So when you are hunting, do just take your time and get quite close to the ground. Nurdles can also vary in colour and shape. So the picture there on the right is just showing the different variations of nurdles. But most often they do tend to be clear or white. And over time, they become yellow or brown. So the longer they're in the environment, the more yellow or brownish tinge that they get to them. So just keep your eyes peeled for all those different types. And just a reminder that they do tend to be 2 to 5 millimeters in diameter and often shaped like a lentil. But you can download our handy nurdle ID chart to help you separate true nurdles from other similar looking beach debris. So you can download this from our website, or you will get access to this through our participant packs. And even with the ID chart, if you're still unsure if what you have found is a nurdle or not, please just submit the data to us anyway, along with a photograph of your sample, and we can verify this for you and help you identify it. Another handy thing about our ID chart is that it just reminds you of everything you have to record, so you don't even have to remember anything of what I've said. All you have to do is remember to print one off before you hunt. And please remember to submit your data to us by going to our website. And again, just even if you don't find any nurdles, please consider just submitting your data anyway. It's really useful to know where we aren't finding nurdles. And please upload pictures and videos of your nurdles and yourselves doing nurdle hunts. Collating this sort of footage and images can be really powerful, a really powerful tool alongside the actual data in building evidence of this issue, especially this year, because the Great Global Nurdle Hunt is happening just before COP26, which is going ahead in November this year, right after the global event in October. And we're hoping to showcase the results of this year's hunt at that event. So, being able to showcase pictures and images from all around the world will really help us get the pellet pollution problem at the forefront at COP. And finally, although we don't require people to pick up nurdles for the survey, we know that, yes, a lot of you will want to remove them from the environment. So then we often do get asked, what do we do with our collected nurdles? And so we have a few suggestions for you. The first one, why not just consider keeping them and putting them on display? Storing your nurdles in some sort of jam jar, for example, and use them to raise awareness amongst your family and friends or further. It's a lot easier to tell people what a nurdle is when you have a good example or sample of them. You can contribute to more science. So some scientists in Japan have been studying toxic chemicals associated with nurdles since 2005. So they run the International Pellet Watch, a global monitoring of persistent organic pollutants by using these beached nurdles. So you can send samples of your pellets to the lab to contribute to the work. Head to the website to find out more, and you might want to just double check the requirements of how they want the nurdles handled before you go on and send them on. You could send them to an artist. So there are quite a few artists out there who do work with nurdles. Maybe check out artists in your local area or country. One that we can recommend is Martin van den Eyden, a Belgian artist creating a growing artwork called Checkmate, which is basically, it's trying to visualize the scale of plastic pollution using a chessboard. So that's what the image is there. And nurdles. So he's basically every square on the chessboard is double the amount of nurdles in order to show the exponential growth of plastic production. So Martin is in need of a lot of nurdles. So he's asking for donations just now. And then if you do just want to bin them, please do make sure you bin them securely. Unfortunately, nurdles can't be recycled. So if you do decide to throw them away, sometimes the best option is to fill something sturdy with a lid, so they can't escape into the environment, or double bag them so the plastic bag doesn't split and they get into the environment. It's not ideal, we know, but that's why we want them to stop entering our oceans in the first place. And very lastly, just remember to share your hunt with us. So if you don't already, please follow us on social media. The main tag for the event will be #Great Global Nurdle Hunt. But we will be sending out social media kits along with our participant packs, sort of end of August, beginning of September wise time, and we'll be giving you access to these things on our website or through our mailing list. So they'll help you promote and raise awareness of the event. There'll be posters, social media tiles, suggested tweets, etc., to hopefully make it as simple as possible for you. So head to our website to sign up to our mailing list if you're not already on there, but we will also follow up on email after this webinar and give you the option to sign up to future correspondences then as well. And thank you. That is the end of my presentation. I will gladly take some questions now. But I am just going to also stop recording as well.